Hey folks, welcome back to my channel. Today let's dive into another crazy story. So picture this: Ohio, a state right smack dab in the middle of two big regions in the US. Now, Ohio's weather? Well, it's a roller coaster ride. Think scorching summers and chilly winters. And when it rains or snows, it's like Mother Nature just can't make up her mind. Speaking of snow, let me tell you about the winter of 2018. It was a real doozy with heavy snow and bone-chilling cold. Crazy, right? On January 28, 2018, at 8 p.m., a car was parked outside an apartment complex. A young blonde-haired girl got out of the car and walked briskly toward the house. She was returning from work. In her hands, she had a bag of food from her favorite fast food restaurant and the keys to the apartment. As she approached the door, she was surprised to find that the key did not go into the lock. The girl hurriedly decided to check each key on her metal ring, but none of them fit the lock. Suddenly, she remembered that she had given her key to her brother and reopened her purse in search of a spare key. When the key was found and the lock was finally opened, an unfamiliar voice called her name, and she turned around. A large male figure grabbed her and carried her into the apartment with nonchalant assertiveness. The door slammed shut. On January 29, 2018, the staff of Shaw Davis Funeral Home was alarmed by the absence of everyone's favorite assistant, Rachel, at work. She did not answer the phone, which worried them because the girl was very responsible and took her work seriously. The head of the office asked a colleague who was engaged in delivery to come to Rachel's apartment to check on her and find out the reason for the silent absence. He went to the girl's apartment, but no one answered his knock or call. He contacted the manager of the apartment complex, but this attempt was unsuccessful, as it was only possible to enter the apartment with the tenant's permission. Her colleague called the police to the place of residence of the missing girl. When they went inside, they found nothing scary. The apartment looked completely normal, except for the leftover food on the table. Rachel, who adored order, couldn't leave food without putting it away in the refrigerator. This caught the attention of her coworker. He insisted on a more thorough inspection of the apartment in the presence of police officers. During the inspection of the bedroom, he tried to look in the closet, but when he wanted to open the door, he thought something was wrong. With effort, he yanked the closet door open and screamed. Hidden inside was Rachel's bloody body. Officer Frank Scaney called forensics, and the apartment complex area was cordoned off. In her own apartment, Rachel Anderson's bound body was discovered in a bedroom closet. She was stripped to the waist, partially wrapped in a blanket. Her head was wrapped in a shirt, and a black article of clothing was tied around her neck with part of the fabric stuffed into her mouth as a gag. The victim was a young 24-year-old female, Rachel Anderson. Rachel Nicoletta Anderson was born on January 28, 1994, to William Bill Anderson and Patricia Trish Anderson in Warren, Ohio. Rachel had a younger brother, John, who was a common family favorite. She was a 2012 graduate of Warren Harding High School, where she was part of the National Honor Society and played soccer and volleyball. Rachel chose a completely unusual profession. Since childhood, she dreamed of becoming a funeral director. The girl studied at Youngstown State University, where she specialized in the study of the bodies of the dead. She treated her vocation with great importance, for which she got into the list of the best students and received a scholarship. She then attended Cincinnati College of Mortuary Science, where she graduated in 2016 with a Bachelor of Science in Mortuary Science. After becoming a member of the Ohio Funeral Directors Association, Rachel moved to Columbus, where she began her internship at Shaw Davis Funeral Home. She was very reverent about her work and felt it was her duty to support and assist the relatives of the deceased. Her internship was coming to an end, and Rachel dreamed of becoming a full-fledged employee of the Bureau, but her dreams of the future were destroyed and sneakily taken away in the most brutal way. Rachel's body was taken to the morgue, and investigators interviewed the first witnesses. The autopsy performed on Rachel Anderson's body revealed the mystery of the horrific manipulation she had endured that night. The young woman had been strangled and stabbed. She suffered a laceration to her scalp and fractures to the base of her skull. The stab wound went through the back of her neck and penetrated the left hemisphere of her brain. Rachel was stabbed with such force that part of her skull broke off. The autopsy also revealed that she had been strangled with an electric blanket cord, and as a result of the strangulation. Rachel Anderson's tragic demise unfolded through a series of grim revelations. The coroner's report revealed the extent of her injuries, detailing hemorrhaging in her sternoclavicular muscles and eyelids, alongside blood-filled vessels in her eyes. It was a brutal end marked by the perpetrator's sadistic tendencies evident in the bruises and red marks on her ankles and wrists, indicating she was alive when bound. Forensic analysis pointed to a DNA match found on the rope and her body, linking the crime to a malevolent force. Initial theories veered toward strangulation, but as investigations deepened, a more chilling narrative emerged. Rachel's apartment yielded scant clues, save for her missing wallet and the chilling discovery of the murder weapon, a 9-inch steak knife found by her mother. The crime scene hinted at a robbery gone horribly wrong, yet the savagery of the attack spoke volumes about the perpetrator's twisted psyche. It was evident that this was no ordinary criminal but a depraved individual reveling in their dominance over the victim. The hunt for the perpetrator led investigators down a convoluted path marked by false leads and dead ends. Surveillance footage offered tantalizing glimpses of two individuals exploiting Rachel's car and financial assets after her death. But it wasn't until DNA evidence surfaced that the investigation gained traction. The culprit, identified as Anthony Perrin, emerged from the shadows of anonymity, his criminal past painting a chilling portrait of violence and depravity. Perrin's rap sheet read like a catalog of horrors, punctuated by a trail of sexual assaults, robberies, and attempted murders. A product of a troubled upbringing, his early years were marred by a diagnosis of conduct disorder and antisocial personality traits. Despite repeated brushes with the law, including stints in juvenile detention and prison, Perrin continued to evade justice, slipping through the cracks of a flawed system. His reign of terror culminated in Rachel's brutal slaying, a heinous act that laid bare the failings of law enforcement and the judicial system. Despite Perrin's history of violence, he had slipped through the cracks of supervision, evading detection, until it was too late. The trial that followed provided a grim reckoning, a meticulous reconstruction of Rachel's final moments that underscored the magnitude of her loss. As witnesses took the stand and evidence mounted, the full extent of Perrin's depravity came into sharp focus. From the chilling details of Rachel's injuries to the forensic analysis linking him to the crime scene, every revelation served as a stark reminder of the human capacity for evil. In the end, justice prevailed, but it came at a steep cost: a young life cut short, a family torn apart, and a community left grappling with the specter of senseless violence. After a long party, Rachel and her brother spent the night at the house of friends. The next day, Rachel went to work, leaving the key to her apartment with her brother. On the 28th, John Anderson returned to his hometown and accidentally brought the key with him. Around 1 in the afternoon, Rachel texted John Kennedy, who had a key to her house. She said she would come to his place and pick up the key. Rachel spoke to her mother around 6:30 p.m., and then went and got her key from Kennedy. Since her apartment door could only be locked from the outside with a key, Anderson had to leave it unlocked. She stopped for dinner at her favorite restaurant and pulled up in front of the house at about 7:30 p.m. She then left the apartment. Perrin was waiting for her outside. He abducted Rachel by taking her from the bottom floor to the top floor. He held her down with savage force while he bound her feet and ankles with a hairdryer cord, then tied her hands with a belt and blind cords. When the victim was immobilized, he wrapped a curling iron cord between her wrists to stop her from screaming. He gagged her. The villain forced Rachel Anderson to give him the PIN numbers to her cards. He tortured her and took advantage of her. He then strangled the girl in cold blood with a cord from an electric blanket. In addition to strangulation, the perpetrator also inflicted blunt force trauma and a stab wound to her head. He then carefully hid her body in a closet. He left her there naked below the waist and with the electric blanket cord tied around her neck and door handle. The perpetrator then stole her car and used all of her bank cards at several stores in Columbus for a quick profit. The defense did not call any witnesses. The final hearing was held on February 12th. Assistant Prosecutor Amy Van Coulan made the state's initial closing argument, constructing a chronology of the crime and telling the jury that Perrin massacred Rachel Anderson in cold blood. In the defense's closing argument, defendant's attorney Larry Thomas acknowledged that Perrin used the victim's cards but argued that he was not responsible for the crime. The attorney argued that the state's case was based on speculation and the DNA and cell phone evidence did not prove Perrin's involvement in the crime. The jury, made up of 4 men and 8 women, deliberated for about 6 hours over 2 days before finding him guilty on all counts. The prosecution sought the death penalty because he killed Rachel Anderson in an aggravated burglary, and because he had a prior conviction for a similar attempted murder of a woman. Prosecutors sought the death penalty instead of clemency because of his extensive criminal history. Prosecutor O.B. Bryan said, "There are some people who basically cannot behave in accordance with the law, and Anthony Perrin is one of them." The sentencing phase of the trial began on February 18th. A defense seeking to mitigate aggravating factors cited the suspect's troubled childhood to the court and jury, but that didn't work, and prosecutors voiced that the aggravating circumstances outweighed any mitigating factors. Furthermore, it was proven at trial that Anthony Perrin was fully aware of what he was doing when he attacked Rachel. Perrin's mother and sister, along with a psychologist and his former elementary school teacher, did testify in his defense. On February 19th, Anthony Perrin self-reported a 13-minute unscripted statement to the jury discussing his abusive childhood. He also spoke about his problems after leaving prison, describing hardship and helplessness. He claimed that the system failed him and no one helped him. In his last statement, he blamed the justice system for who he is today. He did not speak directly about the crime or apologize for it. On February 20th, after 3.5 hours of deliberation, the jury deadlocked on whether to recommend the death penalty and recommended life in prison without parole. Sentencing took place on March 16, 2020. Rachel Anderson's mother cried in court as the verdict was announced. The father issued a statement recounting his observations of the investigation over the past few years. He was extremely surprised at how a violent criminal and repeat offender made demands and became hysterical as if he was owed money. The man was shocked as a grown man, complaining that the system had failed him, trying in every way possible to absolve himself of even the slightest bit of guilt. In his final statement, the father of the deceased noted that there is obviously blame to be placed on the system, but in the situation that happened, it only failed Rachel. Judge McIntosh sentenced Anthony Perrin to 1 life sentence without parole for aggravated murder and another life sentence without parole for violence. Anthony Perrin was also sentenced to an additional 63 years in prison for aggravated burglary, kidnapping, aggravated robbery, and multiple violent offenses. The sentences must be served consecutively. An evil fate it was. The 24th birthday for Rachel Anderson, the life of a young woman who had everything ahead of her, was cut short. Her internship was coming to an end, and she was about to be offered a promising job. Rachel was buried at Pineview Memorial Park. Her family and friends are having a difficult time recovering from such a sudden loss. Each year on January 28th, her loved ones light a candle in their homes and remember the blonde-haired, smiling Rachel. After all, to know Rachel meant to love Rachel. She was just a beautiful soul, and she would do anything for any of her friends. Rachel had many hobbies throughout her life. First and foremost was her career. She had the gift of compassion. She loved dancing and socializing with family and friends. She loved children. She loved her life that was stolen from her. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel. There are many shocking stories ahead of you.